I'm looking at a lot of comments coming in this morning, Simon, about Liverpool. And I've seen one or two comments from fans, and in the same sentence as what's happening at Liverpool, there is the word burnout.
Yep.
Is there anything in that, do you think? Because to be fair to Klopp, he's had to rejig the pack.
Sure.
He hasn't got Van Dijk. We know that.
Yep.
Gomez, the other night on Sky Sports News when we were doing transfer deadline day, through it came. He's got no Matip until the end of the season.
Yeah.
So he's had to jiggle the pack, and he's doing that. Does burnout come into it?
I think ultimately you have to look at the reality that it's very difficult to retain a Premier League title. It's very rarely done. It's often talked about in very reverential terms how difficult and challenging it is. So Liverpool are the victims of setting themselves incredibly high standards that is awfully difficult to maintain. The balance of the Liverpool side has gone slightly, so it will exacerbate the thinking that there's burnout because they've lost that balance, they've lost that momentum, they've lost that rhythm. You know, the central part of Liverpool was the stability that they built the flair and attacking prowess upon, was the fact that they knew they could shut the back door with Virgil van Dijk, and that's not there anymore. So the launch pad, the launch sequence for everything that's Liverpool has suddenly lost its way a little bit. You know, we thought they'd regained their poise over the last couple of games, and then they put in another moderately lacklustre performance. In the first half, they looked very pedestrian.
Yeah.
They got it together in the first 10 or 15 minutes of the second half, which is ironic when Brighton scored.
Yes.
But there is... You know, they're definitely not firing. And, you know, this notion that teams were beaten before they went on the pitch of Liverpool. There's two kinds. There's an age-old adage, Jim, about business, football and life. You know, which lasts longer, fear or respect, right? And in football, there's not a lot of respect. So most of the time, it will be fear. Now, if you're not playing very well, that part of the game evaporates as well. So the fear that other sides come onto the pitch with against Liverpool that aren't playing very well, that fear has evaporated as well. So you've not only lost the respect side of things because Liverpool aren't playing very well, you've also lost the fear.
Yeah.
So the psychological barrier is no longer there for teams coming on the pitch. Then you've got Liverpool having their own travails, i.e., what they might consider burnout because of the intensity they play out. I think it's a loss of balance. I think they're an unbalanced side now, which doesn't give them the launch sequence.
Well, Simon, let me throw something at you because somebody mentioned this to me this morning. Manchester City have been out without one of their main talismen, Sergio Aguero, all season. Liverpool, sure, are without some key people. Yeah. Manchester City plough on and are going well. So as far as Liverpool are concerned, is it not a case that the best always find a way through their problems and Liverpool are trying to do that?
Look at the key component to what Man City were struggling with last year. They did not have a central defensive partnership that was working for them. Vincent Kompany had gone, Laporte was injured, and there was huge accusations of the fact that he was remiss and negligent in the fact that he hadn't bought alternative centre-halves. So then Man City's season evaporated last year in terms of being able to defend the title, and people were looking at Man City saying that dynasty that we thought was going to happen hasn't happened. But what was at the centre of it? They didn't have a central defensive partnership, and the understatement of the value of that, it cannot be ignored. Now, look at Liverpool this year. They've lost their central defensive unit, and all of a sudden, their base to launch from has gone, and they've had to adjust. They've had to juxtaposition around midfield players, so they take something out of the mid. So basically, they take something out of the midfield, they take something out of the central defensive unit. So they're losing in both areas.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, you know, you have a little bit of wobble with the front three, that they can't produce magic all the time. And there you've got Liverpool.
Sure. Well, I mean, Andy Robertson's comments were interesting last night. Just when I compare, compare Liverpool with Manchester City at the moment, shouldn't be forgotten Guardiola brought Stones back and has revitalised them.
Sure.
So in terms of what's going on behind the scenes, City are ahead of Liverpool in that area.